All right, guys. So Oklahoma State going to keep this train rolling, a part of the Big 12. You have Texas Tech that's out there doing a really nice job. And now you're going to add Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State now, you go from Jim Knowles to Derek Mason, and that, I think it's tremendous for Oklahoma State. Just because Derek Mason wasn't fantastic at Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt is a very tough place to succeed with the private school limitations you have in recruiting. I know it's in a happening city in Nashville, Tennessee, but Vanderbilt is a very tough place to succeed. And Derek Mason did decent at Vanderbilt. He even had a couple of upsets over there, but he was with David Shaw at Stanford. This is a guy that was a wide receiver coach at Ohio, and Derek Mason, he does know how to coach defense, and he did a nice job at Auburn last year, excluding the Mississippi State game. Auburn's defense against Alabama, for example, with Bryce Young, they were fantastic. And you look at Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles is, again, in his mid-50s, never really was a head coach, but Jim Knowles was phenomenal with Oklahoma State. And now with Spencer Sanders, Oklahoma State is committing to kind of this run the football, ground and pound sort of situation with Oklahoma State. So the fact is, for Oklahoma State, you get a proven DC in Derek Mason that's a great leader. You surround him with Mike Gundy. You have great experience. Stillwater, I think, is going to have good money for the NIL guys. And overall, it's just a huge hire, again, for the Pokes. I mean, you go from, losing a stud in Jim Knowles, and now you hire Derek Mason. I think it's a tremendous hire. And then Mason realizes the potential of Oklahoma State and the defense that they have. And this is a school that defense used to be mocked at Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy. If Brandon Weeden and, of course, Justin Blackman and guys like that, they would throw it all over the yard. We could look at Cornelius, Clint Chelf, J.W. Walsh. I mean, all those quarterbacks were really fun to watch at Oklahoma State. They would throw it all over the yard, and they wouldn't play any kind of defense whatsoever. You'd have a couple of corners go to the draft, but you never really had linebackers or defensive linemen that were really elite at Oklahoma State. But now Derek Mason ends up going there. It's great for Oklahoma State. For Auburn, it's really troubling. I mean, Mike Bobo ends up leaving. Your offensive coordinator and your defensive coordinator leave. So there's a lot of drama at Auburn. I mean, not a lot of people were enthused with a guy at Boise State that was a decent coach at Boise State, but wasn't Chris Peterson at Boise State. Nobody really knew about Brian Harsin and him coming into Auburn. They had questions about an outsider at Boise coming in. And then their offense with Bo Nix was decent. Tank Bigsby did okay, but at Penn State they lost. Against LSU, they were fortunate to win that game. Against A&M, they weren't very good at all. Against South Carolina, they lost that game, kind of inexcusably. And then they lost a bowl game to Houston as well. So, I mean, for Auburn, it was a 6-6 year. And Gus Malzahn, even in his worst year, is 7-5, 8-4. So, it's pressure. You're in the same state as Nick Saban. You now hire a really young Austin Davis, who's very unproven as a quarterback coordinator. So you're pretty much taking matters into your own hands. And now Auburn promotes from within a linebackers coach to be their defensive coordinator. So Brian Harsin really is really on like a little bit of a hot seat here in the second year. If it all goes to crap, they're going to look to get out of it. I mean, the basketball program's great with Bruce Pearl. They're number one in the country. So Auburn basketball, it's actually turning into a basketball school. And you look at Jordan Hare and those fans that are at Auburn, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Brian Harsin. He is taking it into his own hands, but he wasn't able to retain Derek Mason. The offensive coordinator, Mike Bobo, maybe you tried to recruit Gunnar Stockton and it didn't work out. So pretty wild situation. Mike Bobo might end up going back with Will Muschamp as like a analyst for Todd Monken or something like that. So anyway, great for Oklahoma State, and for Auburn, more risk with Derek Mason leaving the Plains, going to Oklahoma State.